Good morning and welcome back to Mobility Matters. I'm your host, Javier Betancourt, Executive Director of the Citizens Independent Transportation Trust. We're the quasi-independent agency of Miami-Dade County charged with overseeing your half penny for transportation and the implementation of the People's Transportation Plan. So as I've said before, 20% of your half penny funds go to all of our municipalities. We have 34 cities in Miami-Dade County. They all get a percentage of that half penny sales tax to implement transportation projects of their own. And so I'm really excited to have one of those cities represented here today, City of South Miami. We have their mayor, Javier Fernández. Mr. Mayor, welcome to the program.
Javier, a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. And we've known each other for years back
too long.
You worked for the city of Miami at the time, and I was at the Miami DDA.
Exactly.
You were, as I recall, chief of staff to the mayor?
I eventually ended up being his chief of staff for a couple stints. Yeah. Right. It was a fun experience as a 26-year-old to come out of the affordable housing advocacy sector and work on a whole bunch of stuff I'd always talked about, dreamed about doing, and great mayoralty to just come in with some ideas and given the runway to do things. So great time. Yeah,
it was such an exciting time at the city, right? So many great projects. You had Museum Park. You had the what's now called Midtown Miami project. I mean, just so many wonderful things to work on.
It was a good time. Mayor Diaz, I think, doesn't get his just due. Yeah. Frankly, I think the foundation for the Miami we see today really started during the early seeds of that administration, and 40-year projects that this community talked about, the Port Tunnel, right from the mid-'70s, actually being delivered during that time period, and how it transformed the ability for something like Miami World Center to happen, right?
It's another one, yeah.
Relocation of Camilla's house out of downtown and what it's done to transform that area. So lots of important projects that I think in aggregate really certainly changed the face of downtown Miami and a lot of neighborhoods in the city of Miami as well.
No, agreed. I think years from now, we'll look back on that administration much like we do today for Maurice Ferre, right?
Yeah. No, I think Maurice definitely set the vision of what Miami could be and kind of set the standard. And I think that standard was probably met 20, 25 years later in the Diaz administration. So Miami is in your rearview mirror, and then you moved on, you became state representative. Tell us about that experience. It was fun. The state, it's probably the best thing I can say about the experience is that kind of reaffirmed my faith in democracy. And I say that because notwithstanding that we live in a society that's hyper-polarized, when you get into the chamber, you see that people are just people. Mm-hmm. And we don't always give the other side enough wins, being the minority, but people are very happy to work with you on ideas, listen to your input, incorporate that input into their ideas. And so I walked away from that process feeling very positive about that institution. Came away with a very different perspective on term limits. I think actually it's the worst thing we've done to our state government. Wow. Because it was odd for me as a member who spent a year knocking on 25,000 doors, asking for permission to be our community's advocate, to have to go to the halls of Tallahassee and lobby staff to have my bills heard, right? So the power dynamic that term limits has created, I don't think is a positive one. It's taken a lot of power out of the hands of legislators and put it into staff and lobbyists who are the institutional memory in those chambers today. So.
Well, okay. Interesting take. Yeah. Is there any kind of movement afoot to reverse that?
I doubt it. I think term limits are highly popular. Yeah. We now have them in our school board, and in
fact, people are calling for it now at the federal level. Right?
I think it's perfectly appropriate at the local level because the issues, frankly, are much more straightforward. What I enjoyed about being a state house member was that the subject matter was just so diverse, right? The least challenging part of my job is the substance of being a local mayor because I've been around it for 20 some odd years. In Tallahassee, it was a little bit different. I had to do a lot more studying, a lot more preparation to talk in a way that was intelligent about issues related to insurance reform or regulated industries. And those are not subjects that you kind of pick up 60 days at a time in session or the 6 weeks before in committee weeks. You got to spend some time with the subject matter to become proficient and really push back on industry or other stakeholder groups that may be advancing things that are certainly in their interest, but not in the interest of the public.
Okay, so you mentioned, the transition then to local government. So how did that come about? Why did you run for office? And how long have you been in?
Yeah, so I was elected November 2022, and I had a very positive relationship working with the commission here in South Miami. And oddly enough, it was two members of the commission, Commissioner Brian Corey, who's a colleague today, and Commissioner Josh Liebman, who approached me about running for mayor. They thought that the city needed to go in a different direction. They thought that my experience would be, valuable to the council, and they thought that I had the personality to kind of have people work as a team, where there had been a lot of, I don't know, a partisan or personal infighting on the board, and the board they felt was kind of directionless. So that conversation started, in probably late 2021, and I finally wrapped my head around the decision to do it probably in February, March, and then formally announced in April of 2022, the campaign.
So I live just down the street, so I know the city well. But for those who don't, tell us a little bit about the city. What's its population? What's the geography?
So we are a very small city that has the ability to, I think, outpunch our weight class, frankly. We're in the geographic center of Miami-Dade County. We are probably the only city in South Dade that's incorporated that has a transit station at the end of its downtown. We've got a historic Main Street, or historic scale Main Street, that gives us, I think, our town center the prospect of a lot of charm. And we're probably just under 13,000 residents, about 2 square miles, and hoping to grow that population, not insubstantially, but really focusing our opportunity for growth and making a difference around transit, which is why I'm excited to be here today.
And by the way, we're in South Miami.
We are.
Right now, right? Miami's Community Newspapers, and we want to thank Miami's Community Newspapers for hosting and producing this program. So we're in their studios now, right?
Absolutely, and they're a pillar here in South Miami for sure.
Yeah, and their reach is well beyond the city with all their different community newspapers throughout the county. So great organization, and we thank them. So as mayor of South Miami, obviously you work on a variety of issues, and we'll get into a couple of those. But the primary purpose of this podcast is to talk about transportation. Yeah. So you receive surtax funds, half-penny funds. In addition, I'm sure you have other funds that go into, your roadways and your various transit services. So let's talk about that. And you don't get a lot of half-penny funds. Let's set that expectation, right? Because you're such a small city.
We are,
and the monies are distributed on a pro rata basis. So, but what do you do with the monies you get from the CITT?
Our evolution with CITT has been, initially we had a fixed trolley system that we were trying to operate. I think the consensus was that was not operating as efficiently as it could. Today, we basically use the money in two ways. One is to help fund our roadway resurfacing program across the city, and also to operate Freebie as a service. And Freebie has, I think, done a very nice job here in South Miami.
Freebie, for those who may not know, is that on-demand service.
On-demand transit service. So we went from a fixed line service, fixed route service, to an on-demand service that seemed to be a bit more responsive to what people wanted. The challenge that we've had with Freebie is that there's more demand, and scale with a fixed fleet is challenging. So we just completed a solicitation around our PTP or on-demand transit service, and are now negotiating with VIA, because the context also in which we started operating has changed substantially. With a better bus network project and Metro Connect, now the county has a baseline level of service that provides connectivity for that first and last mile, or to places within a specified geographic area. One of the unfortunate parts of the project for us is that a small portion of our city is now in the South Kendall or the South Dade Land corridor, but the majority of the city, including our town center, is in the North Dade Land trade area. So we're looking at seeing how we can complement what the county is already doing. We have been heavily trying to promote, educate our most dependent transit ridership, which is our elderly and our low-income community, that have been the primary beneficiaries of the Freebie service, to understand that Metro Connect is an opportunity for them to get pretty much door-to-door service for most places they want to go, or connect to mass transit elsewhere. We've had a couple of workshops with the Transit Alliance and the department to kind of market and help people understand how they can utilize it at a very basic level, just answering people's questions about where they go typically and how they can use that service to get to those trips. So that's been an education process, and for our seniors, our Golden Passport riders here historically, that transition has been a bit challenging. Right. But I think we're starting to make some progress. And so our ambition now is to see how we can take our dollars, layer onto that service, and possibly now get people who are not transit dependent, but choice riders into our town center and subsidize rides in and out of the area where we need to kind of create some more economic dynamism. So we're trying to use this money now, not just for, the last mile connectivity, which I think the county's doing a good job of, but also use it as an economic development tool.
And to that end, people don't necessarily live within their jurisdictional boundaries, right?
Correct.
They don't even see them.
Yep.
Half the time you don't even know where they are.
Yeah.
And so I know that you abut the city of Coral Gables.
That's correct.
And are you exploring opportunities to perhaps join forces with the city to provide services that may cross those boundaries? Connect to UM, connect to city of Coral Gables. Many people don't know has a commercial area south of US 1, right adjacent to your city, right?
Yeah.
So are those discussions happening?
So we are having conversations with them about integrating services across the board.
Yeah.
Our streetscape now with Sunset Place being redone, 57th Avenue is a point of connection.
Mm-hmm.
Both sides of our southern town center have a boundary that no one really appreciates. What side is Coral Gables?
Right.
What side is South Miami? So we've talked about, in contrast to the rest of their city, should we have an integrated aesthetic, right, for those areas, just to kind of create that connectivity across 57th Avenue. As you know, we've been talking about possibly extending their trolley service into down into our town center here in South Miami as well to connect both town centers. Well, one of the challenges is a legislative challenge, as you mentioned, but we've been looking at PTP because it does have a 5-mile radius, right? As a way to bring people from the neighboring communities, Southern Gables, parts of the Grove, unincorporated parts of Dade County along the waterfront south of the Gables, Pinecrest, the western parts of unincorporated New York City into our town center to kind of support our existing cash of businesses there. And so, we think as a board that on-demand services are probably more attractive to that user base because they're accustomed to using them. They're probably very familiar with Uber and Lyft. Yeah. And so we're talking to Via, who's one of the providers, about trying to see what we can layer on. But we have on-demand service in a limited area outside of South Miami to add some more connectivity and bring people to our community.
And I'm glad that you're framing this kind of in the broader context of economic development because, transportation, and I know you know this, is one leg of a three-legged stool, right? It's transportation, economic development, land use, right? Yeah. Those three things all kind of influence each other. So speaking of economic development and your town center, I know I just read an article recently, a really great article by Andres Figlucci that talked about some of the redevelopment that's slated to take place there. Focus certainly on Sunset Place, which is a mall of a bygone area, but then maybe extending even beyond that. So can you speak to some of those redevelopment opportunities and where the city is at this moment with those?
Yeah, we as you know, Javi, that the imperative statutorily is we've got to grow, right?
We're going to. So,
well, we are growing as a community, and the other side of the coin on this housing crisis is the fact that we're just not allowing for enough housing production in this community generally. And we are land challenged, but we are resource rich in that we do have, this spine of transit that we've never really leveraged. And so, I try to be a student of history. And I think Henry Flagler had it right from the moment he got here, which is our growth opportunity as a county is along, this coastal ridge that he identified and laid his railroad tracks down. And where we have invested the majority of our mass transit dollars as the trunk line from which everything else will connect. And so, we are blessed to be on that main line. And our opportunity is to grow around that transit station. And, a lot of the trips that we're suffering are trips where people are passing us by. And those trips are going to continue, or there's nothing that we're going to be able to do to stop that. What we want to do is create conditions where everything one needs to live their activities of daily life are in, around, or near South Miami. We want to help them get to those services through alternate means beyond just their vehicle. So whether that's creating better pedestrian conditions, or micromobility with scooters, or on-demand services via or Uber or Lyft, or anything, we want to make sure that there's that full range of options for people to kind of get to and from places that they need here in South Miami. A lot of the time I spend as a parent is shuttling my kids to and from activities that just aren't available in South Miami. So we've invested very heavily in a soccer park that in the northern part of our city that I think for a lot of families will become a very attractive club to join because they won't have to schlep out to Southwest Dade for an hour each way. My daughter has played travel volleyball, just stopped this year for the better part of the last decade. And I spent an hour going to Doral each evening and back. For families, making sure that there are programs that speak to their kids, located in South Miami is important. And we've got to provide the facilities, right, on the recreation side to match those ambitions. I think all of that will basically improve mobility and our quality of life because we aren't going to far-flung places to find the services that we want.
Right. And can you dig just a little deeper into the Sunset Place redevelopment? What's being proposed there?
So, Sunset Place is a regional mall that has a transition. And, I think people see what's being proposed and they struggle with the scale. But I could try to contextualize it this way. They have rights to build, they had rights before we started this conversation to build 3 million square feet of commercial space. That's 2 times the size of Dadeland.
Wow.
Okay, on that 10-acre parcel. So our choice was, not to engage them in conversation and have them explore development that would have been another monolith, right, in our city, not connected to our streets, very single use, very heavily single use focused, very limited residential, or have a conversation about trying to create something that would, over the course of 20 years, become its own community and connect to the rest of the community. And so that's the conversation we're having now. And so what we hope to see there is a mix of uses, a lot more housing than would have been allowed on the site before. Again, because of its proximity to rail and it's in our town center, and we need those rooftops to support the shops and restaurants that we all want. Right. I live 10 blocks from the town center. I want to be able to walk there, but there's got to be something to draw me there. Our best restaurants, unfortunately, have been closing because conditions are tough. And so bringing more people to the town center is imperative to its success. So we're going to see that hopefully with Sunset Place. We're going to see hopefully a variety of more arts and cultural offerings. I'm hopeful that they'll anchor, something like Area Stage as part of the future redevelopment there. We're hopeful that we'll see more F&B. That's certainly part of the program. And we're hopeful that we'll see some lodging and office uses so that people who are professional sole proprietors can establish their home base here in South Miami as opposed to have to get into the car and drive to the Center Gables like I do every day or drive to downtown Brickell, right? I think this is part of the mobility solution we need as a county is allowing these little centers to grow where people can, again, do everything they need in their daily lives.
A true mixed-use community. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It works well. So you mentioned Bike Ped a little earlier, and I know the city has historically been a leader in promoting bicycle pedestrian mobility and then actually building it. Yeah. And you have a great bike shop here that's kind of
we do, yeah,
world renowned at this point. Max Cycle
for a little promo for them. Yeah, they are the best in the business for sure.
And great community partners.
They absolutely are. They're
promote them.
Excellent partners. Yeah.
So tell us about some of the Bike Ped initiatives, either just recently completed or things you have on the books.
Yeah. So in terms of my personal focus, we are talking about a city hall redevelopment. And I think one of the opportunities there is to create a signature public space that would serve as almost a destination on the Underline. So a draw for people to want to come to South Miami on the west side of our town center that's been a little bit less active historically. And so we are, and that's within eyeshot of Max Cycle. So we're hoping that we can draw people to this location on that linear park that's being created here, and hopefully will be finished in the next 2 years. We've been very grateful to our state senator Alexis Calatayud for her support of a project to connect the Pinecrest Parkway with the Underline. So this is if you've ever driven through or ridden through Pinecrest south of Kendall, there's a lovely kind of dedicated bike ped path. Yep. It has no connectivity going north of Kendall Drive to the Underline. So we had successfully gotten through the budget and appropriation to fund that project. Some initial portions of it to the tune of about $800,000. Unfortunately, met with the governor's veto. So we're going to come back and try to do that again. And I think longer term, as we hope to annex some communities that are adjacent to South Miami, we want to be a bigger part of the conversation around the Ludlam Trail, which is yet another opportunity to kind of activate and connect our region. So we're playing in those spaces. We're playing at a level I think probably commensurate with our size. Right now, our big focus has been filling that gap from Kendall to US 1 to the underline, and that's probably where we'll see most of our efforts over the next couple of years.
So I'm happy you mentioned annexation. As I said, I live nearby, just north of South Miami.
Yeah.
And I know the northern boundary of the city is very spotty.
It's a mess.
It's just kind of hit or miss. So is that where you're looking to kind of maybe fill in the city by going north, or what are the opportunities?
We have one active conversation with a community just south of Fuchs Park, which is on 80th and US 1. And we have a meeting tonight to talk to them about the possibility of annexing. A couple of neighbors had approached us about it. We want to go where we're wanted, number one. Sure. We don't want, this is not, from our perspective, we don't want it to be an adversarial conversation with neighboring communities. Some areas like Biltmore Heights, which is an area self-defined from Blue Road to Miller, 57th Avenue, Red Road to 62nd Avenue, have approached us initially in some conversations, so we may explore that. But I think from a service perspective, both for the city and the county, us incorporating areas to Bird Road where we already have a presence makes a whole lot of sense, because it's not sustainable for either entity to have us with this kind of hybrid service system right now.
Well, we're running short on time. Is there anything else you wanted to say to the good people watching?
Just thanks for the opportunity. And if anyone has any questions about what's happening in South Miami, my cell phone number is right on the city's website. Feel free to call or text. Happy to have a conversation. We are very excited about the excitement around South Miami, and I'm very grateful to my colleagues on the commission. We've got a great team. We work as a team, and it's been an absolute joy to chair that board here for the last 2 years. It is an exciting time at the city. You're doing great things, transformative things, and I think maybe years from now they'll look back at your mayorship as we're looking back at Manny's. Oh, hopefully, I'd be fortunate. Thank you. You had a great mentor. Mr. Mayor, thank you for everything you're doing at the city. Thank you for being a guest on my program. Much appreciated. Hope to come back soon, Javi. Thank you. Thank you. Happy to have you back anytime. Folks, that's all the time we have here on Mobility Matters. You can join us every other Thursday from 9 to 10 a.m. roughly. And once again, we'd like to thank our hosts here at Miami's Community Newspapers for producing this program. If you'd like to learn more about the CITT and the People's Transportation Plan and all the good work that both the county and all of our cities are doing, please visit our website, miamidade.gov/CITT. Thank you and have a great day.